What the f did I just watch?
What did you make us go watch?
This is your fault.
We knew it.
Look.
We knew going in.
I told you. Ron Perlman is alive.
Wow. Wow, guys. This film is a colossal disaster. It's all over the place. It is a shocking, and you need a massive beer. Joe, where's your beer?
Right here.
Joe, what the hell is that tiny?
Man, I can't keep up with that man.
Guys, Hellboy is freaking awful. It looks like a low-budget, low-rent TV.
It's a streaming movie. That's what it is.
It is. No, it's almost worse. Well, at times it's good, and then other times it's not. The CGI. I can't believe this. Why the hell did we not just get Hellboy 3? So Hellboy 2019 chooses instead to completely reboot the franchise, introduce a bunch of new characters that we do not give a shit about, completely retell the origin story of Hellboy, which we got just a few years ago. Okay, a lot of years ago, but still recent enough where it's like, come on, we need to do this again and do it in such a poor way. It's awful.
There was
Do
that
not
one.
go see it. I'm going to try to put this review out as soon as I can to warn you guys, do not waste your money. It's a waste of money. Unless you want to see something shockingly just fall apart in front of your eyes, and there is certain entertainment value in that. And there are some entertaining things.
Hey, there was that one pun you liked. That one thing.
Yeah, we'll get to that in spoilers, but I talked over you guys like a motherfucker in the DCEU films ranked, so I'm going to let you guys talk ad nauseum, and I'm going to say
okay, so maybe on paper it would have been fine, but the execution on this movie was just so bad. It was all over the place. Mm-hmm. They try to get to one plot, then a new one pops up.
There's these short scenes that are trying to like clue us in, and then you watch the whole movie, and then you go all the way back to that first scene. And you go, wait a minute, this whole movie is based on this 5-second scene that we see nothing, and it's just two characters that don't matter coming together, going, we should screw with Hellboy. That's the whole movie. That's what this is about. The story just completely falls apart.
And what do you mean by that? They screw. Oh, right. There's personal vendettas against Hellboy, which really drives
minor characters that don't like Hellboy, and they're just like, we should start this thing.
And that's what drives the entire plot, essentially. And there are so much, like the entire script is like nothing but exposition. Like 90% of what people say is just exposition, exposition, exposition. And then we get so many flashback scenes that I lost track of which flashback scene we're doing. This one gets a flashback. That one gets a flashback. Anytime they start talking like this and the camera's
like,
I'm like,
here
oh,
we
here we
go.
go. We're going into another flashback. And we do a flashback. We do a flashback of Hellboy's origins. We do a flashback of this new team member. We do a flashback of what happened with the Blood Witch. We do a flashback of the King Arthur times. We do a flashback of just everything that you can think of, the old magic times, and it is just crazy. And you know what? It just does not work. It's fucking awful. A lot of the CGI sucks, but you know there's some creative. The best thing. What is the best thing about Hellboy? I know what it is. It's the 5 seconds of demons that you see in the trailer.
Okay. I didn't want to – yeah, that's the only thing worth seeing. I mean, there's kind of spoilers, but like these demons come up and they skin some people. It was really cool. And then they go away. And then I was sad.
It's not really spoilers since it's in the trailer.
Oh, is it?
And
Okay.
we'll tell you up front. People fucking die in this, and they are eviscerated.
Yes. I love the gore at that point.
The gore is big in this movie. Rip people's faces off. Dismembering people, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? And there are some really grotesque character designs that they really play up. And under a different direction, under a different tone, you can tell how a lot of this stuff would be really effective. There's one scene in this film that I really liked, and it was the Baba Yaga scene. The Baba Yaga scene.
Is it because you
I
can kind
wonder
of see
why.
down the shirt? You like?
Are you kidding me? Are you talking about Baba Yaga's titties flapping all over the place?
They were
No,
horrible.
that is not why I liked it, Alex. That is disgusting. I just
know.
thought it was creepy. You know, there's a little bit of crab walking in there. There is creative designs where he goes into essentially a different kind of area to meet Baba Yaga. And there's a plot point with Baba Yaga. They tie Baba Yaga with Hellboy very closely in this version. And Baba Yaga wasn't in either of the two original Hellboys with Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro. That wasn't a thing. And this is probably this film's greatest sort of strength. But even that scene is kind of ruined. The lighting is wrong. The music is wrong. And it's played
That's a
for
big part
laughs
for me, like,
instead of horror.
The soundtrack on that was,
Yeah.
it just ruined the film.
There you go, Joe.
Yeah.
I think the soundtrack, garbage. What did y'all think?
I mean, you mentioned the tone, and that's the biggest problem with this movie is we get these cool scenes that kind of remind me of like Pan's Labyrinth. You see this big feast, and then there's this really cool looking character, and then they're joking about something, but not in a really clever way, and they're actually really bad. Like there was a lot of laughs. The biggest laughs in this film were really corny, and I think everyone was just kind of fed up with the whole movie.
Yeah.
They're just kind of groaning at the movie.
Right.
So the tone goes back and forth so much that, given a different director, given a different direction, like whoever was in charge of the practical effects did a great job. Whoever was in charge of like the character design for some of the CG stuff did a great job. Yeah. The problem is the writing is so bad. It feels like it was a 6-hour movie with 6 hours worth of characters and story and dialogue condensed so much that every time Hellboy meets someone, he's like, "Oh, you're the Baba Yaga who last time I banished to the Shadow Realm that one time, and then we fight.
You in the eye.
You're that cat guy that does the cat things from that one time, and here's a flashback," because they tell you everything and they show you very little.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for y'all to continue to talk because I talk over you all the time, and I'm tired of that feedback. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man. Like it's like you nailed it on the head right there with the dialogue. It was cringeworthy.
Yes.
Like the lines, the way they delivered it too, didn't help at all. These actors, I didn't like.
No. What do you think about?
Yeah, I was about to say like he was okay. It's not as bad as I thought.
Hellboy.
It was
David
bad,
Harbour or something. Yeah, he did fine, but still,
he's no Ron Perlman, man.
He's not my Hellboy.
No.
Well, the biggest thing is the father figure, like. In the first couple of Hellboy movies, you really get attached to that character because you really care about
greatest
that Hellboy.
failing of this film right here.
Yeah, the relationship, I didn't buy it at all. It was so forced where it's like, "Oh, you didn't love me and now I'm angsty." It's like, "Aren't you a grown-ass man? Like you're acting like you're 13 years old the entire movie."
Yeah. I felt the relationship between that far better in the previous Hellboys. Yet this film tries to ground its emotional reactions and its emotional moments in that. And it does a terrible job. And not only that, in the climax of the film, they do something with CGI. We'll talk about it in spoilers. That is the stupidest, most shocking thing of 2019, probably of the past bunch of years, as far as I can remember, that you're supposed to take seriously, and you're just laughing, you're like disgusted, and you're like, what the fuck? So many animators animated this, and the poor actor himself gave his best performance, not knowing what they would do later with the green screen
He didn't
footage.
read his contract with Lionsgate. They're like, "Oh, you're going to be in all the John Wicks, but you also have to do this other thing." He's like, what? What now?
And let me say this
good and
about
bad.
Lionsgate. Now that you bring it up, you just reminded me of motherfucking Lionsgate. I forgot about that.
too.
I was
I'm
almost about
sorry.
to give
I'm
them a
so
pass.
sorry.
You know what? Serves you right. Now we know, Joe. Now we know why we got a manual claim against our video, Hellboy the trailer reaction, because me and Joe were like, this looks awful. There's something wrong here. None of the jokes worked. It looks cheap.
And
We
he's like,
talked
fuck you guys.
shit about it, and they claimed our video, and then I had to counterclaim, and then it was going into a copyright strike, and it was like, should I allow a copyright strike? One of 3 copyright strikes on my channel. And I was like, I can't believe these motherfuckers. And you know what? I just said, you know what? Fuck that. I deleted the video. And I just said, whatever, we're moving on. And now we know exactly why. A manual claim, somebody, an employee of Lionsgate.
You dare do it.
So now, you know,
it's gonna be
and so
hard
that's
now.
why it's so important for us to get our opinion out of this film. Now, of course, they did an embargo. You know, up until
yesterday.
today.
Well, yesterday was the first that we saw any reviews.
And what was it at?
11%.
11 at Rotten Tomato. Metacritic was at 34. And I
God
damn! I
damn!
checked it this morning. It was at 30.
It's just falling, and it's going to continue
at
to fall.
what?
It was at 30 this morning.
30
on Metacritic.
30% Metacritic.
Oh, and Metacritic.
It
Metacritic
fell.
is always way more generous, I think, than Rotten Tomatoes. So if you're saying 11, I thought at one point I thought it was at 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. This thing is getting eviscerated by the critics.
I can see why.
Oh yeah, you could definitely see why when you watch this. Now, so the tone doesn't work. The acting doesn't work.
The plot doesn't work.
The plot doesn't work.
The dialogue.
The pacing doesn't work. Stuffing so many things in there. The dialogue doesn't work. Exposition heavy. The climax doesn't
villain.
work. The CGI.
No, but I love her.
The giant fights, when he's supposed to be fighting those giants, it's terrible looking. Now, the one CGI thing that I really liked is I liked that Hog character. You barely see him in the trailer, but he is there, and I liked his
Bebop,
character.
right?
Yeah, Bebop and Rocksteady, you know, and Bebop. And I was like, wow, I like him. I liked his voice actor. I liked his CGI. It was done relatively well. I was watching the lighting on his face as he's talking. I was like, wow, they really spent their time on this character. I really liked him. He was really, every time he was on screen, I was entertained. And then they fucked that up. And so I was like, oh, okay, great. So now, you know, the film goes nowhere. You know, I will say this. I shouldn't say the film goes nowhere. The film actually does push the Hellboy lore a little bit further than we've ever seen it on screen, because the previous Hellboy films have always alluded to his prophecy, him heralding in the apocalypse. This film actually does start to show some of that, and it starts to show some epic stuff. But when the CGI is so bad, and when it's in such a bad film, it's like...
It was like Scorpion King bad. Do you remember the Scorpion King where like The Rock is horrible?
Well,
Like,
it wasn't that bad.
when he's all the humans that he's in that scene.
No. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. No, he looks all right. Him himself looks all right. Even the flaming crown looks cool. That's why I was like, if we could just take this one scene out and put it in the Del Toro film, then we're all right. You know what I'm saying? Hellboy is it's friggin' awful. What else, guys?
You like that one joke that one time?
It was so fucking stupid. Like, did any of the jokes hit you?
No. I laughed maybe once, maybe twice. Once had a cheesy joke, and another time I don't even remember the joke.
Yeah, this one didn't really have any humor, as like opposed back to the other ones. Ron Perlman, his line deliveries were great. It was believable and it was funny. This one, his line delivery was terrible.
Yeah, you see it, and it's almost done for the trailer. You know that moment when he
was.
comes out of the police car and they shoot at him? He's like, "Ah, I'm on your side." That was like way out of place. The theater was dead silent,
Yeah,
and it was like, wait, what?
I honestly just wanted to be like, shut up.
Shut up. We're right in the
it.
middle. It was just the line delivery, Joe. It was not good. Not good. So, well, let's go ahead and go to final verdict so we can talk about all the spoilers so that you do not have to go and see the film.
I will start this off. The plot was horrible. Mila, she hasn't really been in any good movies, and the streak continues.
What is going on with Mila? Why does she choose such garbage, Joe?
Hey,
explain
she's there
this
for
to
the
me.
paycheck.
Like,
Yeah.
ever
It's the
2006,
paycheck, man.
2007, you know what? Fifth Element. I fucking loved her in Fifth Element.
Yeah, but then...
And the first Resident Evil was all right. And then she, oh, my God, just awful. Just
she
fell
doesn't care.
off.
She's in her amazing house.
You know what's
and she's,
funny?
like,
I
getting
will
the
say this.
paycheck.
Mila is one of the best actresses in this film. It's one of the best performances in this film because Mila plays it the fuck up. She is hamming it up. And you have Hellboy here, who's just pales in comparison to Ron Perlman. You've got this sort of Alice side character that Hellboy meets.
I didn't
that's
like the
supposed
side
to be some
character.
kind
Yeah,
of
that was
love
another
interest
thing.
or something.
It was weird.
It's done very awkwardly. We'll talk about in spoilers. And then you've got some generic soldier who's supposed to be like the replacement for Abe Sapien in the original Hellboys, who is a pale comparison, a boring character. Everybody puts in boring performances except for the pig Bebop and fucking Mila. So I'll give it to Mila on that.
I guess that. But yeah, there's no connection, no really character development with any of the side characters. I didn't feel for any of them. I didn't like any of them. The plot was terrible. The villains I didn't really like. The best scene happened at the end, which we didn't get to see enough of. Mm-hmm. This is a below average film. I'm gonna give this a 4.
What the fuck? Wait, that high?
I was like, what?
Slightly below average. You know, on our scale, Joe, I need to remind you about our scale. Okay? There's an average film, and 4 would be slightly below average. But it's fair.
No,
if that's your opinion, it's fair. Is it a slightly below average film, Joe?
Because I think worse was Holmes and Watson.
Oh, yeah.
We gave that a fucking 3.
Well, we really should. I gave it a fucking 2.
A 2? Yeah.
That should have been. Okay, well, no, hey. If it's a 4 to you, then it's slightly below average.
Just watch it if it ever comes out on TV or something, but it's not worth going out and seeing.
Okay.
Definitely not.
But I'm just double checking because I am so shocked, and
He's really trying to be strong. Be strong. This can be your Suicide Squad.
Well, hold on, because I also enjoyed this film more than Holmes and Watson.
Yeah, because you know how the internet is. It's like, well, you gave this.
We
to
have
this
to really,
and this, which is kind of hard. It's like, honestly,
it's very hard.
I can't give it a 3 point something something.
Nope.
But I think it's
but you have to but I will explain it to the audience that you can't take ratings and cross genres.
But they do that all the time.
But that's because they're idiots. They just see one rating and then
they the internet.
No, I'm saying those particular people that are so hyper focused on a number. And now we are hyper-focused on the number because they're hyper-focused on the number. Well, if you're that hyper-focused on the number, then you have to compare them against films within its same genre. And when you're talking about a comedy versus a horror, I think it's a slightly different scale. 1 to 10 and then 1 to 10, slightly different. But, okay, whatever. We'll figure it out. So 4 out of 10?
Yep.
Okay.
The biggest problem with this movie for me was after watching Hellboy 1 and 2, I didn't read any of the Hellboy comics. I didn't know anything about it. So the Hellboy, the first one with Ron Perlman, was my first exposure to him. And I loved the Hellboy character. He's got faults, but it's endearing, right? Like you feel for that guy and you like him. You want to see more of him. So when Hellboy 2 came out, it wasn't as good. But I still enjoyed the film and I liked the character of Hellboy. I didn't like the character of Hellboy at all this entire movie. And his father straight up tells him at the end of this movie, stop whining. Yeah. And you realize, oh my God, Hellboy has done nothing but bitch and moan and whine this entire movie. He's a child. He's a grown man. He's supposed to be a grown man. Yeah. He's been on the earth for 30 years.
20-something.
But he acts like he's 12, and he whines everything is whiny.
He's unlikable.
He's an unlikable character. And so they took a character that I liked, and they turned him into a character that I didn't like, and the story didn't make sense. The humor wasn't there. There was some cool CG stuff, but there was some really bad CG stuff. Like, this movie is a 3 for me. This is not just a little below average. It loses an additional point because it takes a character that I once liked to a character that I don't want to see any more of at all.
Yeah. And so it's tough with the rankings. I gave Joe a tough time on the rankings. Because there are some really good aspects, some shocking aspects, some things I want to say kudos, right? But then there's some things that made me fall asleep. And the Hellboy character, you're right. He almost sleeps through his own film. He's bitching and whining through the whole thing. He's not likable. His supporting cast is really not all that interesting. And that's why I'm over here. My favorite characters were the villain and the villain sidekick, because that's really what holds up the film for me. And then these demons that show up for 5 seconds and eviscerate, literally peel people's skins off. And I was like, holy shit,
but you're not exaggerating.
It's
Hellraiser. 5 seconds. It's just 5 seconds.
I know, and that's what makes me upset because, and they're going with all these wacky tones. You've got the worst soundtrack I've ever heard, and it's just wacky and smiley, and then the next second you got people's face being ripped off. But that's a little bit of the Hellboy comic. And it has kind of that kind of tone, wacky tone to it. But what they tried to do is they tried to stuff in way too much into a single film. This almost feels to me like a trilogy, right? And if you fleshed out the characters, if you really focused on the character moments, if it wasn't so cheap looking in certain parts, then I can see it maybe working. And they tried so desperately to sequel bait. Oh, you really like Abe Sapien? Okay, well, stay to the end because there's 2. Okay, shit. Fuck.
Yeah.
No one cares. Don't see this movie.
They really tried to sequel bait so bad. Oh, you like these other characters that may be missing. Oh, well, wait, how about this? And there's 2 after credit scenes, as if this film is monumental. If this is a Marvel film, there's not 1 but 2. And almost every single person, I think every single person left in the theater except for us, and we waited for the last
We told
credit.
them, and they didn't care.
Yeah, they wanted to leave. So that is, what Hellboy is like. You want to leave. So, yeah, I liked it more than Holmes and Watson, but it is a 3 out of 10. It is not a slightly below average film. It could be because there's so much effort, and I really do like the fact when people just say, you know what, we're going fucking crazy. We're just going to jam everything in here. We don't care if you're along for the lore and the ride. We're just putting everything in, and that's kind of what they do here. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. It is a comic book. Oh, people will be like, oh, well, it's very accurate to the comics because this happens and this happens and then this happens and this happens. But it's just a series of things happening with no fucking connection, and then the climax happened, and it's like, okay, maybe that's like the comic, but guess what? That's like a bad comic. Just because it's like a comic doesn't make it good. It's like a bad comic, not a good comic. So 3 out of 10. And I did not enjoy Hellboy. I don't recommend you go and see it. Like Joe said, when it comes out on television, when it's Netflix streaming, because this thing is going to drop like a ton of bricks.
It'll be at the Dollar Theater tomorrow, probably, right?
I will be shocked if this film is a financial success. I know it's getting ripped apart by critics, but I just don't see the theater we were in. There weren't all that many people, and they wanted to leave immediately. And I can tell you, those people are going to be like, "Go out and see Hellboy." Like we're telling you now,
don't
skip it.
Yeah,
okay. Don't waste your money. We will tell you everything you need to know in the spoiler section, which is coming up next. Thank you so much for watching. If you don't want to see that, and we will see you on the next Angry Joe Show.